Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Tennis Volley Talk with Brian Danielson. Hey, this week I just had been not feeling all that good again. This last week I've been fighting something, but I'm finally getting over it. I did end up playing on the grass court or the clay courts in Minneapolis. I'm from and two public clay courts now. Didn't do very good. So one of those things that happens that you just don't have a good day serving and could not return anything. But hopefully that'll change around and I can serve better the next time when I'm on those courts against the guy that I usually play with. One of my friends that I've interviewed on the phone through here, Rob Small, that I've interviewed before. And along with that, what I'm gonna be talking about a little bit today is the upcoming final of the Vienna tennis tournament in Vienna. One of which that one of our great one-handed backhand players, Dominic Thiem, decided to retire, and after he got beat by let's see, by Luciano Du Didri, and he got beat 7-6, 6-2. But anyway, with that, he ended up having a very nice speech and thanking everybody for all the great times in tennis and the tennis that he has played over the years. But he shortly after 2022 had a wrist injury, and he had surgery on his wrist because he felt a pop in one of his tournaments, and it just never did recover back to his full potential of hitting the ball like he wanted to, and it was such a devastating thing. But he ended up giving a very nice speech and thanking everybody and thanking the play that he's had over the years. And it was then he ended up then putting actually his racket that he played with that day. He actually then hung up his racket in a little display case and just hung it up at a little slant. And that was it. He hung up his racket for good. So he'd probably get into commentating and or something else. But he was a very good player back when he played, and he was at his peak and winning the 2022 U.S. Open in New York. So with that too, in Vienna, there's the Vienna Open, and that's where Dominic Thiem is from, Vienna, and that's where his home was, and that's where he wanted to retire, in which he then did retire. And then with that, he then in Vienna, then we have a Russian, Karen Khachanov, will play Jack Draper from England, and that should be a hard-hitting match between the two of them. Draper being a left-handed, and Khachanov being right-handed, but both of them hit the ball very hard. Draper, he is actually then coming back, hitting the ball really well and being very consistent. So Khachanov might have a little bit of trouble with the lefty, but who knows? But I think what I'm going to do is pull for Draper in this one over Karen Khachanov. And then we do then have in Basel in Switzerland, we have Giovanni Mesepchi Picard will face Ben Sheldon of the USA. And I think that maybe with Ben Sheldon's serve, if he serves smart and good, he may have a chance to win that in Basel, Switzerland with that also. So with that too, I've been out playing and trying to get out there, but it's winding down now here in Minnesota. It's getting a little cooler and not very many more days out that they will have the nets up in Minnesota. About the only place that they do keep the nets up is a local high school that leaves 2 nets up during the winter. So if at any point there might be a day in odd day that is like 65 degrees or close to 70, then they'll leave the nets up on 2 courts. So then some people can get out and actually say they played in February in Minnesota, which I've done 2 years straight one time, which has been very, very good to do. And then with that, I've been playing tennis with another friend of mine that just got over hip surgery, and he's getting better. He's actually then being able to move out of the corners a lot better now than what he did when he first got over the hip surgery and everything, and was able to get back out on the tennis court. And I've interviewed him in-house before with Scott Johnson, and I interviewed him in-house, which was a good interview too. And so I'm trying to get some more over the phone interviews. I have a few calls out, but I just haven't had a response yet. But once I do, then I will, hopefully get that taken care of and have a good over the phone interview with somebody for the podcast. I've gotten a few calls out to a few, or not calls, but emails out to a few people, or I've called and left a voicemail. So hopefully they'll get back to me. And hopefully, one day I'm just hoping that I would get a chance to interview a tennis star. And that would be a great accomplishment and help grow my tennis podcast. I'd love to get a hold of Jimmy Connors. Jimmy, call me if you can. So who knows? So with that, I just want to now say that, with that, it's always been fun to be able to do what I do. And I hope that you do subscribe, like, and comment on the podcast. And for you podcasters out there, you're going to hear about the racket of the day coming up. And it will the nice racket, and it's a still very well-made racket too for its age. So with that, I just kind of wanted to let everybody know that I like doing what I do, and I hope that you do too. Leave a comment, subscribe, like, and comment. So would love to have any kind of comments, what you might think that what you'd like to hear me say or like to hear me do. Any more over the phone interviews or anything of that nature. Just trying to look for some ways and means to let me know how I can grow and do better at the podcast that I've been doing in my second year right now. So with that in mind, I'm going to be here today with the racket of the day, which is actually a Pancho Gonzalez racket, and it's called the Impact 310. Now, I'm not really sure what that Impact 310 means for the rackets. It could be just the brand name of the different rackets that they have, the Impact, or like the Davis rackets were the Imperial Deluxe, the Imperial, and all of that. But I'm not really sure. But I do like the way that the racket is. It actually has the Spalding stencil on it. Then I like the green color, the green with the white stripes with the green Impact 310 on it. Spalding, but the green color is really always a nice half a way up. And then it has the throat there too. With that, it has the nylon strings in it too. So these were common probably, and this was probably strung at the manufacturer with the original string that it came strung with. Never has been changed. So I think that's probably the original string job, which is still pretty good for this kind of a string. But I do like it. It's a Pancho Gonzalez. Was one of the very well-known players back in the day. Very, very good, very strong serve is what he had. And he was Spanish player, I believe, or Mexican. I'm not quite sure. Sorry about that. But somebody will probably correct me on that, of who it was or what nationality he was. But back then in the day, he was just a very good player all the way around. A marathon guy is what he did. And he won so many tournaments in his day. But with that, it's a Spalding rack. Now, being Spalding actually then, with that particular racket, it was founded in 1876 by Albert Spalding, and he was actually a part-time baseball player at the time, also manager, and then also a pitcher part-time for the Boston Red Stockings back in the day. And also with that, his business based, it was the business was based on baseball and tennis, and expanded into tennis, and sold the Slocum racket after the legendary player Slocum, who was second U.S. champion in 1888 and 1899. It was made in Belgium, so they did make them out of country with some of the rackets that they did make. And then U.S. champion, and that was probably in around about 1925. Spalding made the decision to open their fifth plant globally in Australia, of all places, and adding to those in the USA, Canada, UK, and France. The plant in Australia was to make tennis rackets, tennis balls, and golf balls, and the likes of the sponsors who did sponsor those rackets back in the day were the likes of Bill Tilden and Bill Johnson, and Australians Jack Hawkes, and then Pat O'Hara, around 1926 or so, somewhere in that area. So with that, it was that's who sponsored them back then, and they had a lot of different sponsors, and then some of the endorsements back in the 1920s and everything. But like I said, this racket here, the Spalding Impact, it was basically probably around about this is probably about 1960s, in that era, getting into, in the 60s, 70s era. So that's where it actually came from. So with that, please let me know what you would like, and comment, like, subscribe, and let me know. And then also, I do appreciate that. And then you podcasters, if you want to look at the racket that I just talked about, then you can always go to my tennis podcast, Tennis Volley Talk, on YouTube. So this week, everybody get out and still play if you can, and enjoy the week. And I will too. And I'm going to try to get some more over the phone interviews. And I hope that you do like that, because I do like doing them. So everybody have a nice week, and thank you very much. And I'll talk to you next week.